Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We are now in the second part of our holy dua, and it begins with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'ullaha wa ati'ur rasula wa ulil amri minkum wa kulla shay'in ahsaynahu fi imamim mubin. These are two separate parts of ayats. So if we take the first one, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'ullaha wa ati'ur rasul wa ulil amri minkum, then this is part of Surah 4, ayat 59. And the whole of this ayat reads as follows: Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'ullaha wa ati'ur rasul wa ulil amri minkum fa in tanazatu fi shay'in farudduhu ila Allahi war rasul in kuntum tu'minuna billahi wa yawmil akhir zalika khairun wa ahsana ta'wila. And the meaning of that in English is, O believers, obey Allah and the Prophet and those in command, those who possess the command amongst you. Should you disagree about anything, refer it to Allah and the Prophet, if you truly believe in Allah and the last day. That is the best and the most appropriate for the sake of ta'wil. Let us try to analyze this ayat step by step. First of all, we notice here that the believers are being asked to obey God. In this obedience to God, Muslims are joined by all those human beings who also believe in one God. That means that on our planet Earth, in the entire population, there is a very large percentage who are obeying God. And you could say that this is the universal ethics of human beings. But in Islam, the obedience doesn't stop there. We are then asked to obey the apostle or the prophet. And this is religious obedience, because here the notion is that we obey the religious rules and laws that the Holy Prophet Muhammad gave under the title of Islam. Again, it doesn't actually stop here, because the ayat continues, wa ulil amri minkum, the possessors of command amongst you. This is, in our terms, spiritual obedience, because the ulil amra, who are the imams of the from the direct progeny of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, they are the spiritual guides at this time, and to obey them is to have spiritual guidance. And then the ayat goes on that if you disagree about anything, then refer it to Allah and the Prophet, if you truly believe in Allah and the last day. Now, what would people disagree about, which they have to refer to Allah and to the Holy Prophet about? We have seen in history that the central disagreement has been about who is the rightful successor of the Holy Prophet Muhammad and whether he had a successor or not. Therefore, people are being asked to refer to Allah. Allah means today whatever Allah commanded in the time of the Prophet is recorded for us in the Holy Quran. And if we go to the Holy Quran itself tells us that we have to not only obey Allah, not only obey the Prophet, but we have to obey the possessors of the divine command, the ulil amr. So there must be somebody whom the Prophet had appointed to carry on the work of explaining the Quran for the future generations. Secondly, we have to refer to the Prophet if we are still not satisfied. So the Prophet has left us a complete legacy of hadiths and traditions, and we have many ahadiths which tell us that the Prophet did appoint a successor, and that successor was Hazrat Amirul Mu'minin Mawla Ali. And many of these ahadiths we have already mentioned in the previous lectures, that the Prophet had said, I am the city of knowledge and Ali is its gate. If you wish to have knowledge, enter through it. And the one about I am the house of wisdom and Ali is the door. And there is the famous verse, the famous ayat, famous hadith of the Prophet about, O Ali, you are to me as Harun was to Musa. O Ali, you are to me as Aaron was to Moses. And this story of Hazrat Musa or Moses in the Holy Quran in Surah 20 tells you what was the relationship of Hazrat Harun or Aaron with Moses, Hazrat Moses. And that was exactly the same relationship between Hazrat Ali and Nabi Muhammad Mustafa. And for instance, the Prophet also said, O Ali, you and I are the parents of the Ummah. So all these and many more ahadiths, and if any of you who are listening would like to know more about these ahadiths, then you are referred to a book which was compiled by Dr. Fakir Muhammad Hunzai, and it is called the Ahl al-Bayt in the Prophetic Traditions. And you will see how many ahadiths or prophetic traditions there are about the succession of Hazrat Ali and the importance of Hazrat Ali. So then we go on and we see that the believers are told to do this, to turn to Allah, the Holy Quran, and to the Prophet in his ahadith, if they believe in Allah and the last day. In Surah Al-Fatiha, we talked about Yawmiddin. Well, Yawmil Akhir is a synonym of Yawmiddin, the last day, the day of resurrection, the day of judgment. And to believe in that is extremely important for Muslims. And the final sentence is Zalika khairun wa ahsanu ta'wila. That is the best and most appropriate for the sake of ta'wil. Now, ta'wil needs a little bit of explanation, because we Ismailis believe that the Holy Prophet brought the tanzil or the exoteric of the revelation, and that he appointed the imams in order to continue the work of the ta'wil or the esoteric interpretation of the Quran according to the time. And I would refer you to the preamble of the Ismaili constitution, in which in paragraph B it is said that in accordance with Shia doctrine, tradition and interpretation of history, the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam designated and appointed his cousin and son-in-law Hazrat Maulana Ali Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam to be the first imam to continue the ta'wil and ta'aleem of Allah's final message, and to guide the murids, and proclaimed that the imamat should continue by heredity through Hazrat Maulana Ali alayhi salam and his daughter Hazrat Bibi Fatima Taz-Zahra Khatun Jannat alayha salam. So this is clearly spelled out in the preamble of our constitution, that if there is no imam from the direct descendants of the Holy Prophet, then the work of ta'wil cannot continue. And if the work of the ta'wil cannot continue, then the Holy Quran on its own, as a book of tanzil or the exoteric revelation, is very difficult for people to understand. And if there are 1.2 billion Muslims in the world today, if they all have their own interpretation, then there can be no unity. And it is for this reason that the Quran in Surah 3, Ayat 103 speaks about hold fast to the rope of Allah. And in the Ismaili understanding, the rope of Allah is the chain, the unbroken chain of the light of Imamate. And holding fast to it means that all of us should accept the Imam's interpretation of the Quran. So in our second part of the dua, the two Quranic ayats are fundamentally important for us. We do not have the complete ayats, we only have sections of them, but we should take the trouble to refer to the Quran and to understand the whole of these ayats. The second section of the ayat in this first paragraph of the second dua is from Surah Yasin, which is the 36th chapter of the Holy Quran, and the ayat is the ayat number 12. And this complete ayat runs like this: Nahnu nuhil mauta wa naktabu ma qaddamu wa asarahum wa kulla shay'in ahsaynahu fi imamim mubin. And in English it means, it is we who will bring back the dead to life and record the deeds of men and their traces which they leave behind. We record all the things in Imam Mubin, in the manifest Imam. This again we have as only a part of the ayat from وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَسْوَيْنَاهُ فِي إِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ. But the whole of this ayat is very important because it talks about life and death, and it talks about the record of deeds, that everything we do in this life we are accountable for. It reminds us of that farman of Maulana Hazar Imam, Noor Maulana Shakari, Mul Hussaini Hazar Imam, that do not think you are here for one time only and after that you do not have to account for anything. We all have a record of deeds. It is in Arabic called Nama-e A'mal, and these are recorded in the manifest Imam because God has encompassed the knowledge of everything in the living and present Imam, who is from the direct descendants of the Holy Prophet. These two ayats together are fundamentally important for us to understand, because here there is the concept of obedience as well as the concept of the manifest Imam who encompasses all knowledge. One additional point which I would like to make here is to link the word Ulil Amr to Hujjatil Amri, which is in the last paragraph of the first part. You see, we have here the word Amr repeated, and the word Amr means command, divine command. And we should refer to Surah 21, Ayat 73, وَجَعَلْنَهُمْ أَئِمَّتَانِ يَهْدُنَا بِأَمْرِنَا, which means, and we made them imams who guide by our command. Imams have been made by God, and the imams execute the command of God. They are the holders of the divine command. And this is the reason why everything in our Jamaat Khanas always begins with Amri, Mukhi Sahib, and the Mukhi Sahib replies, Amri Hazar Imam, by the command of the Imam of the time. So our dua has many relationships to our other practices as well. So wherever it is possible, we will try to link them, and inshallah we will in our next talk look at the second and the third paragraphs of the part 2 of our dua. Ya Ali Madad. The second paragraph of the second part of our dua goes, Allahumma ya Maulana anta salam wa minkas salam wa ilayka yarji'us salam hayyina rabbana bis salami wa adkhilna dar salam Tabarakta Rabbana wa ta'alayta ya dhal jalali wal ikram. This is a beautiful prayer which we can use at any time, because this prayer is about peace, salam. And we are asking Mawla to, who is peace, and peace is from him, and we want to return to peace. And we are saying, give us, O our Lord, a life of peace, and enter us into the Dar es Salam, the house of peace. Peace is also, salam is also the root word of the name of our religion, Islam. It is also the root of our greetings as Muslims when we say to people, salam. Muslims greet each other with Assalamu alaikum and Wa alaikumus salam. The word salam is repeated so many times. So we have to ask ourselves, what type of peace is being spoken of here? And the best way to understand the word peace here is to refer to Surah 37 of the Holy Quran. In Surah 37, which is called As-Safat, there are many references to this word salam. For instance, in Ayat 79, it says that peace be on Noah. Peace be on Nuh among all men. If we look at Ayat 109, it says, peace be on Ibrahim. If you look at Ayat 120, it says, peace be on Musa and Harun. If you look at Ayat number 130, peace on Ilyas. And if you look at Ayat 181, which is almost towards the end, it says, peace be on the apostles and praise be to Allah, Lord of the worlds. So every prophet has peace related to him. So that gives us an indication that the real peace is not material peace, but it is the peace which is attained when a mu'min, following on the Sirat al-Mustaqim behind the prophets and the imams and the hujjats and the peers, actually also undergoes mi'raj. Then he or she will have that ultimate peace. The ultimate peace is described in the Quran in many places as those who have no grief, no fear. That they are protected from grief. Grief is related to our past. We are always grieving about things which we didn't achieve in the past, or things which we lost in the past. And fear is related to the future. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. But for people who, through spiritual progress, following the guidance of the Imam of the time, who is the supreme name of Allah on earth, can reach the ultimate destination of Sirat al-Mustaqim, which is to do mi'raj. And when a mu'min does mi'raj, then he or she is totally at peace, like the prophets were. So this dua for us is a very important dua, and inshallah we'll now understand that not only is it a very beautiful dua, but that it has very profound meanings.